Halloween? You're in the loop. We're here to discuss the spooks, scares, and frights of the sport of figure skating, and maybe give you -5 GOE along the way. Let's introduce this week's hosts.
Hey, I'm Kat. Sorry I sound a little sick, but I've been sitting in a ring for 3 full days straight, and dry air and screaming is a pretty deadly combo. You can find me on Twitter at @cattweets with no E's.
Hi, I'm Kite. I went to Skate Canada in person, so I spent about 30 hours and my voice watching and photographing live figure skating in the past 2 days. And you can find me on Twitter at @Mossiesink.
Hi, I'm Gina. I've been enjoying the sunrise while watching figure skating. You last heard from me in episode 12. You can find me on Twitter at 4atwizzles.
And I'm Nina. I'm still in the process of mostly recovering from having been at Skate Canada Live and the full effects of rink exhaustion, but it was definitely worth it. And you can find me on Twitter at @YonkaiTinPoo.
All right, so I guess we'll start off with recapping a little bit of news that happened this week. So first, Elena Radionova withdrew from NHK Trophy.
It looks like her, I think it was a hip injury, is still bothering her a little bit, so wishing her a very speedy recovery from that, of course. And Alexia Paganini, who represents Switzerland, has been added to the GP in France.
Also, Hanul Kim from Korea has been added to the Grand Prix in Helsinki, so we'll be able to watch her next week.
That's really nice. I'm always happy to see Korean skaters rise.
I really like Hanul Kim. She's so small, but she just really goes for it.
So that's just a pretty brief overview of the news from this week. We do publish a weekly roundup of news stories that you might have missed during the week on our website, so you can just go to inbelowpodcast.com and you will find all of our articles there.
What a performance. And you can see he is really struggling to stay upright.
I guess before we start recapping the skaters, maybe we'll talk a little bit about being at Skate Canada Live, since Kite and Nina and I have been there for 3 days. Well, Nina for 2 days. Any thoughts, guys, being here for a first GP?
I want to say I was not super impressed with some of the audience, not really, cheering for the non-Canadian skaters was something I noticed. And I mean, it is it's an event in Canada. It's called Skate Canada. Of course, you're going to be going all out for your home skaters.
Either the Canadian skaters or the French, they were really, really, really enthusiastic about. Vanessa and Morgan got...
we are in Quebec.
Yeah, Vanessa and Morgan got a huge standing ovation, and they got a lot of cheers. So, and obviously they deserve it. And also Yevgenia got a lot of cheering as well. But she's basically, I guess she's been adopted into the Canadians, kind of. I don't know.
Well, she's also just so well known, and I think she has kind of become a pretty beloved figure for a lot of fans post-Olympics.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, yeah, it was either if you were a very, well-known skater or if you were a Canadian/French skater.
I wish the very well-known points had counted to some of the men's skaters.
Yeah, it was really obvious that when streaming that the crowd was just so half-hearted for anyone who wasn't either really well-known or Canadian. But I also saw some reports that people booed Shoma after the short program. Did that really happen?
I did not actually hear or see any of that.
That wasn't in our section, but Miriam, who is a team member who was volunteering at the actual event, she said that she heard some of the audience booing after Shoma got his scores for the short program because he went ahead of Nam, who was mostly clean. And although
to the naked eye.
Yeah, they could have been booing the judges and not Shoma. Booing the judges is a thing that happens at competitions. It's not great, but I don't necessarily want to read too much into that. But yeah. I mean, either way, it's not really good etiquette for being at a competition. You're here to support the skaters. You're not, here to necessarily wage war on the judges or even if you're not booing the skater, they don't necessarily know that. So it can really affect your attitude going into the competition if you feel that energy from the crowd.
Reading that made me quite angry. You can complain about the judging and disagree with scores, but if booing is just really disrespectful to the athlete, whether you're booing the judges or booing the athlete doesn't know that it's directed at the judges.
Exactly. That's my thing. It's just when you're booing, you don't know who it's at. It just makes the entire atmosphere feel a little uncomfortable for everyone. So it's not a good look.
So there were moments when it was very uncomfortable. I remember during Mariah Bell's free program, she did this gorgeous spiral sequence, and afterwards I was very, very silent, and like I remember a couple people in my section clapped, and I heard some audience members behind me going, "Is no one gonna cheer for that?" Like the crowd was aware of it.
And also, so I sat by myself for some of the disciplines, and like I remember I was sitting by myself for the rhythm dance, and maybe like, and the pairs free skate today. And like whenever I was cheering for Wong Lu or Peng and Jin, like I was like the people next to me were just like looking at me like why are you cheering for them? Or like, I don't know, it was really bizarre. Like I felt really awkward.
That's so strange. That's so weird to me.
Yeah.
You get quite a mixed bag of competitions anyway. Like you have some fans who are really just hardcore there for like their home skaters, but I think a lot of the fans were also very lovely. Like there were these 2 Japanese fans sitting like across the ring from us who had brought flags for every one of the skaters who was competing, so that when they, you know, were bowing to the audience at the end of their program, they could look into the audience and like see their, you know, home country flag flying. And so like things like that, you know, kind of balance out like some of kind of the discomfort that I think was brought by the people just being very aggressive about their, you know, their favorite skaters.
I think that people need to remember that the skaters kind of take energy from the audience as well. So there's no harm in cheering, and if you're not being like distracting, I guess, like cheering after the skaters do a cool element, or, you know, they really gave their all in like their choreo sequence or their step sequence. Like when Wakaba's music like started to pick up, we started like clapping along. We kind of got the crowd like into it. I think like we started the clapping for when the music starts picking up, and I think it really did help her performance a little bit. She started skating a little faster.
We started a lot of clapping this weekend.
Also, when an athlete falls or makes an error, clapping is a really nice way of just kind of saying, hey, it's okay, and like to cheer them on to carry on with the program.
Exactly.
I've only been to a couple of events, but everyone that I've been to, everyone clapped for any element, whether it was successful or not, and clapped and cheered for every skater because they're there to compete and they're there to entertain you. Thank them for that and support them.
And to be fair, I think everyone was very supportive to the skaters that made some mistakes, especially like some major mistakes or unexpected ones. So I do give the crowd that. There's definitely a balance in etiquette, I think, for live figure skating viewing. I guess it's different also depending on like the demographics as well. Like a lot of the figure skating live audiences on the older side, so they're obviously less likely to like yell and scream. So then there's like young people there and yelling and cheering. So, you know, it balances out eventually. Okay, so I guess let's start off with the pairs event. So overall, I thought that like the Skate Canada pairs were pretty good to watch. Like it was fairly pleasant. Like I remember watching Skate America and like all the pairs were falling everywhere. So during the short program, like there were very few, I think maybe 1 or 2 teams had like one fall, but for the most part, it was relatively clean as far as early GP pairs events go. So
yeah, I didn't necessarily expect that, but you know, not going to complain if people go clean.
I'm just always shocked when back-to-back teams go clean in side-by-side jumps, because that almost never happens, especially in the first group. So props to the Skate Canada pairs. So I guess we'll just start off with Vanessa James, Morgan Cypre winning golds by like 20 points. It was definitely, they were undoubtedly like the class of the field at this event.
Yeah, I mean, head and shoulders, I think, above any of the other pairs here. They have amazing chemistry, and they're perfectly in sync in whatever they do on the ice. And Vanessa, like, she did seem a little bit tense, I think, on their technical elements, especially in the short program. She was really fighting to land the throws. But even then, like, just technically, like, performance-wise, they were just far beyond, I think, any of the pairs currently competing, or really most of the pairs in the world at this point, I would say.
I think that like Vanessa and Morgan, they kind of exude this really powerful presence. Like, I've always enjoyed their programs because they tend to skate to more modern music, and their aesthetic is less like small lady, giant guy. They have less of that going on, and so it lends really well to the programs they choose. And like Vanessa, my only thing is that like Vanessa, she gets so much height on her throws, but I do wish that she had like a better running edge and better speed coming out of her throws. But otherwise, she looks amazing.
She does like kind of skid to a halt. She lands a little bit on her toe pick when she comes down on the throw, so it just kind of halts her right there. So yeah, it would like to see more flow coming out.
It's definitely a residual, I think, of practicing the quads. He's throwing her so much higher so that she can get enough time to finish the fourth rotation, and so she kind of like lands down instead of like going outward. I guess like her trajectory is less outwards. But I'm really glad that they decided to ditch going for the throwed quads because they never really landed them. They weren't consistent on them. And they're instead opting for cleaner programs to maximize the GOE. And yeah, I guess there is like an argument to attempting them in programs. But in general, I think in pairs, it's just not worth the risk considering how dangerous they are. Like, I still remember her falling from them at Worlds and like being like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, like this short program wasn't flawless, which I think is fine because it's the beginning of a season. Vanessa seemed to catch an edge or something going into the throw flip, but she landed it fine, so that's all that really matters. And I really like that short program.
They had that quality where you notice something, like you notice like the kind of jerky landings off the throws, and then like a second later, it's completely wiped from your memory because you just get that pulled back into their program.
Right.
And I really liked that they had much more original lift positions than a lot of the other pairs, it seemed like.
Yeah, no, and they got massive, like I said before, they got massive support from like the home crowd. They got standing ovations. It was really sweet to see Vanessa hugging her family after both of her programs. And like her reaction in the kiss and cry was it was so sweet and adorable. They definitely set the world record. They got 145, and Tarasov and Morozov came nowhere near that, I think, because they were not clean in either of their showings in the past couple months. So, yeah, really, really good start to them. I think they really have a chance to make a move in the pair standings, especially this season, considering how many teams are sitting out.
I think we can look forward to seeing them really have a great season and solidify themselves as a top team. What was really funny for me was on British Eurosport, the commentators were lamenting that Vanessa had once represented Great Britain and we let her go.
Oh no.
Oh no.
What could have been?
Oh yeah.
The British pairs scene is sobbing.
What British pairs team?
The non-existent British pairs.
It's like running into your ex. It's like, oh, that could have been so good for us.
But they were also like having a lot of praise for Morgan at the end of the free skate where he's just like fist pumping whilst holding her over his head. They were just like, Christ, he's strong.
Wasn't his celebration at the end of their free program what got them a deduction?
He didn't put her down in time. So yeah, they got a deduction for that.
But I really do think they should change the ending to that. Like I think I always feel like it's kind of awkward. So
well, Morgan gets overlooked, I think, a lot especially in this team because Vanessa just kind of shines. Like she's just like this ray of sunshine, and she's like just so lovely to look at.
You can't
but it's like
take your eyes off her.
Yeah, but it's like you don't want to overlook the fact that like Morgan is probably one of the best men's pair skaters in the field right now.
He's definitely improved a lot, I gotta say, especially stamina wise. He used to look like he was really struggling to keep it together on like at the end of their programs because he's so tired. But he looked pretty good here. I was impressed.
He's very complimentary And
Oh, definitely.
that's a good thing in a pair.
Yeah, like they have really similar lines as well. So they look aesthetically pleasing.
Which astonishes me when I see the height difference between them, that they're able to match their carriage so perfectly.
But yeah, overall, like definitely highlight of the pairs event.
So in second place, we had Chengpeng and Yang Jin from China. I like them. The shot program was so cute and fun to watch.
They're very
And
cute.
it's maybe not as complex as some other teams, but they get good speed and they put on a really good performance.
They have that like entertainment quality for sure.
Yeah, I'm so happy these two made the podium. Like I've kind of always had a soft spot for them. Like they just barely missed out on making the free skate at the Olympics, and they're also coached by Zhao Hongbo. But I think that Peng has so much sass, and she's got this kind of spark to her, and like they're definitely one of those teams that are on the rise because their elements are fairly solid. Like Chinese pairs always tend to have pretty good elements, like throws especially. They've got like a pretty decent side-by-side jump. Like the triple toes were like totally in sync. I think she skidded on one of the landings, like either in the short or the free. Or no, she put her hand down in the free. And then, you know, the Chinese pairs always have like a questionable second side-by-side jump. But she gets amazing height and distance on their throw jumps. Like she can save them pretty well. I saw her save a couple of them during practice. But they definitely, like, their performance needs a little bit more refinement and maturity. And I do feel like they could be a little bit faster, but they're faster than I remember them being. So, you know, they're improving on that. But give it time. It's all about the slow burn with Team China. Like Beijing, keep your eyes on the prize, Beijing 2022. So I'm looking forward to seeing them grow in the next couple of years.
Yeah, like she's got amazing knee bend.
She does. That's how she saves those jumps.
Incredible.
I was just going to say, when we realized they were going to be on the podium, I just looked over at Kat. I was like, is Kat like crying yet? Is she okay? Like we were all...
Oh, yeah.
I was like totally
we were pulling like so hard for this team to like carry on the great legacy of Chinese pairs.
They were one of those teams that like I started cheering for, and like the people around me were like, who are you? Like, why are you cheering for them? Kind of like looking at me. And I was like, I'm cheering for them.
We were the Team China hype squad in the stands.
We definitely were.
We don't, yeah.
They deserve though.
So then in third place for the bronze medal, we had Christian Moore-Towers and Michael Marinaro. And honestly, the biggest thing I can say about them right off the bat is that they got such an incredible response from the crowd, and they have really good energy. I can't say that I necessarily connected the most with their skating, but I did notice that they had some really good performativity, and that even though I felt that their lift positions were a little on the simpler side, she had really good extension when she was being held.
I'm going to get banned from Canada. I'm never allowed to enter. I find Canadians so boring.
Go off.
Go off.
I'm sorry. I found the performance
I was trying to be diplomatic.
Really one note and really dull, and I think they rely, especially in their free program, they rely a bit too much on the music to provoke a response from the audience rather than working with the music to create something themselves.
I
just
agree.
Find them so dull.
A note on the music is like, okay, so they skated to Pink Floyd, their free skate, and like that is such, like a lot of the Canadians I've noticed have like pick oldies to skate to.
So Canadian.
Yeah, they pick oldies to skate to, and like that elicits a response from like a certain demographic. So, you know, like
I think I'm about 30 years too young for Canada.
Yeah, and so like I've seen this free program, I think at least 6 times, because I saw it at ACI during ACI practices here as well. I saw it like 3 times during practices and during the event.
Are you telling me they were at ACI? Because
they were at ACI.
Remember.
Yeah, they were at ACI.
They did. They were struggling a lot with their lifts at ACI, especially. So they did a lot better here. Like they've shown some improvement in the past month, which is good to see.
I didn't remember them from ACI, so the fact that I remember them standing out here is definitely a sign of improvement.
I definitely feel bad for like ragging on them. They're a perfectly fine team. Like their elements have gotten a lot better. They're definitely going to be benefiting from the fact that Julian and Charlie kind of unexpectedly split, because they were kind of neck and neck with them, like fighting for that top Canadian pairs spot. now that Duhamel and Radford have retired. But yeah, like, I'm really impressed at the way she was able to save some of her throws. She, like, I don't know, Kirsten kind of always gives me a Kristen Bell vibe. I don't know, she's like this tiny blonde that's like, she definitely has like a lot of spunk, even if I can't really connect with any of their programs.
Yeah, she definitely has that like killer instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that all Pairs ladies have. You can you can see it in her eyes when she's coming down, like from the throw, that she is going to land this.
And like, do you remember even like at ACI after like the free skate, she goes like, "What was that?" Or like something at Michael like right after, like, "Excuse me." It was really adorable.
I could see her like talking to him.
Oh, that
while she was in the air. But yeah, something went wrong with their throws and their lifts last time. But they got that squared away. Everything looked good. But I agree with Gina. I don't think anything really looked like amazing or spectacular or exceptional.
They did get a really big, rousing, response from the audience. So
I'm just always happy when teams like have a really good moment on home ice, and this was definitely one of those for them. So that was really good.
So now we're going to move on to the men of Skate Canada. So in first place, we had Shoma Uno from Japan, who made a pretty good comeback in the free skate after kind of struggling a little bit in the short program to get all his jumps in order.
I feel like Skate Canada was just like all comeback stories, like comeback in the free.
Watching Shoma live definitely puts his program component scores in a new perspective, because I think I've seen people say on a stream he seems a little bit slow when he's moving around the rink. He is not slow. Watching him live, he speeds around the rink.
He's just small. He gets a lot of coverage.
He has great ice coverage. He had such, like, he was going so fast I couldn't take pictures of him because, like, my shutter speed just, like, was not equipped to deal with how fast he was. So in, like, all of my pictures of him, he's just this blur, like, going through. But yeah, he was, like, the same thing with his jump size and his distance. Like, he doesn't get really good height on his jumps, like, probably as a function of just how physically small he is as a person. But he does have very good air position. He rotates super fast, and he gets them around without really much of a problem, as far as I can tell. And the distance of his triple axel is just, it's world class. It cleared like 10 seats. Like, measuring the distance across the ice was like 10 seats in the audience. It was insane.
And I know that people, of course, rag on him for like arm transitions and stuff like that. And it's definitely true, but the effect of his arm movements is very powerful in person. And I knew to expect that because I'd seen a lot of people say that after they see him live for the first time, but it really comes through.
Yeah, he has a way of making it look like he's doing a lot, even if he's not really doing a lot below the waist.
It's all about disguising the feet or distracting what's going on with the feet with the arms.
The upper body.
Yeah. It's not unique to Shoma, certainly. I have a similar criticism for Nathan.
I think Shoma's more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, in certain programs.
Mostly for me is that Shoma has a much better carriage. His upper body and his core in general is a lot stronger for me than Nathan. Nathan's chest seems to be towards the ice a little bit too much, and he really needs to roll his shoulders back. I think that would improve a lot.
When we talk about component scores kind of making more sense, it's not to say that he should necessarily be getting like 9.5, 9.75 in transitions, because the transitions aren't there. But kind of seeing it more from the judge's perspective by being physically in the rink does help the scores make a bit more sense, because this is definitely not something that's captured on camera. He does not look this fast on camera. So right now, Shoma's short program, it's still pretty empty of, meaningful transitions and choreography, other than, the clapping and the hair pushing, which I'm sure a lot of people in the audience appreciated, but it's not really actual choreography. He spends about the first minute to minute 30 just skating from one end of the ring to the other and jumping. And unfortunately for him, the jumps just really weren't happening. Like, especially on the fall he took on the triple axel. He fell pretty hard. But I think maybe I was one of the only people who's like pretty calm about it, because I was like, oh, that's the same way he fell like during the Grand Prix final last year in the short program, where he just like kind of skidded off the edge and just like slid like down the ice.
Didn't he go foot first though, like at Grand Prix. I don't remember exactly. It plays in my head.
At the Grand Prix final, he kind of did the splits. So it was kind of funny.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, but he slid off his edge was the issue.
Oh,
he fell differently, but like the reason for the fall was the same.
Right.
So,
but it looked, I don't know, it was more amusing, I guess, during the Grand Prix final. Well,
also at the Grand Prix final, he like was smiling afterwards.
Exactly,
that sort of thing.
It was just kind of like that happened. Like that shouldn't have happened. Like
he said he was just a little too like calm, and so when like the jump like started to fail him, he was like, well, I guess like he kind of gave up on it a little bit.
Shoma's competition mentality will always be like a massive question mark to me. Like I am so endlessly fascinated by him and like his view on being on nerves before competitions. Like, you know, you do you, kid. It works.
But that that fall was it was one of those instances where I definitely felt the difference between being there in person and over a stream, because I think the reason that I and a lot of people were more worried was because it was loud in the rink.
Well, like on the stream, you could see that he hit the back of his head on the board.
Yeah, you could hear that from like 20 feet away.
That was what made me really worried. Like I was genuinely quite upset because we were all quite worried that he may have banged his head quite hard because it looked like he had some speed on the ice. I mean, it was really commendable that he got up as fast as he could and he went straight into the step sequence like nothing had happened.
It was fire. That step sequence is fire.
That step
sequence.
Like,
oh my gosh.
In person, again, like with the transitions and just kind of generally not being on one foot a whole lot of the time, that is something that definitely needs to be worked on. But it just had great snap. It had great rhythm. He was projecting to the audience, which again was really impressive considering how hard he came down on that fall.
His competition like switch mode to like go on and off is very impressive. Like you can see him sort of like dust himself off and then switch his face back into game mode.
Yeah, I think the problem with this short program is that it is a whole load of nothing and then the step sequence happens and he sells it so well. And the steps is always where he really shines for me in programs. This wasn't his best step sequence because he had just whacked his head against the boards, but it was still the highlight of the program. So he does get quite excessive GOE though, especially the grade of execution for his quad flip in both programs was really excessive. His quad flip, it should struggle to get a +3, never mind above that due to his technique problems.
Yep. He got a +4 in the short program, which I'm really struggling to see how he hit the bullet points for +4.
My thing is, he should not be able to get this second bullet point at all, which is good takeoff and good landing. He doesn't have a good takeoff, so he shouldn't be able to get above a +3. His landings have improved. I can see improvement in his jumps, and you can really see it in his landings, but his takeoff is poor. Especially
on his toe jumps. His flip entrance is really strange. He doesn't have great flip technique. So he kind of goes into what is called like a mule kick. So basically you swing your free leg around you really rapidly and aggressively and you just jam your toe pick into the ice to get the lift off that propels you into the jump. But it doesn't actually give you as much lift as like a clean picking technique where you're not like trying to muscle through it. So it does look very muscled in person, I will say. It doesn't look like natural. Like, he seems like he's really trying to get those rotations around, which, like, again, props to him for being able to do it at all, because I don't, like, watching it, I didn't see how that should have been possible. But, yeah, no, +4, definitely not. Like, +1, +2, like, yeah, I could see giving him that. But anything above that, I think you have to have a pretty good argument to justify why you gave him that. Moving on to his free skate. First of all, a new costume.
I love it.
And which it felt a lot more appropriate for Moonlight Sonata than we had at Lombardia. So
it looks a lot like almost like a Starry Night, so it makes sense. It makes sense for Moonlight.
The free skate, like I feel like there's not really that much to say about it that wasn't said in the Lombardia episode.
I have to admit that I guess I'm coming down with Tilda on this one, that I actually enjoyed it, considering I stayed away from trying to watch too many renditions of it. So I did like it, but that doesn't excuse the fact that it is empty.
Yeah, it's such a slow melodic program, but it's also so empty. So it's just like it's so slow and it just highlights how empty it is.
That's my main issue with it.
There were times in the practice run-throughs where I'd be like, oh, he's just doing a stroking. Oh, wait, this is his music. He's doing a run-through.
No, yeah, I just, with the Stairway to Heaven, like, in the beginning, the music, like, he moves his arms to, like, the music with the guitar strumming, and, like, that kind of distracts you because, like, it kind of, like, gets you into the mood of, like, the program. But, like, because Moonlight Sonata is so quiet, the movements don't really do anything for you. Like, you're just kind of, like, watching him, like, move his arms around to, like, nice piano music, you know? There's no, like, musical accents that you can...
Unpopular opinion, maybe. I don't think Moonlight Sonata is a great piece of music for a figure skating program generally because it is pretty monotonic, like Kat said. And that's definitely a contributing issue here, is that everything feels so one tone that it feels emptier than it already is. But I think on the bright side, his jumps were a lot easier and more relaxed in the free skate. Like, he came out of the gate ready to play. You could tell, like, sometimes you just get the sense from a skater that they're going to nail their jumps. And he kind of nailed his jumps, I guess. Like, he was jumping the same way he jumped in practice. So he looked pretty good.
His first jump actually was one of the better jumps that I've seen from him in quite a while.
Well, it was called under, so it definitely, like, it wasn't one of the better jumps.
His takeoff,
it looked okay in real time.
Was good.
I mean, it looked fine in real time, but they called it under, so I guess that's a sign that the tech panel is doing their job and they're reviewing rotations pretty carefully.
We always support tech panel doing their job.
Yeah, for sure. And he lost steam, but I don't think it was due to nerves. It really looked like it was due to stamina. Like, he was really gasping for air.
Oh my goodness.
At the end of
and
that.
If Shoma is gasping for air after the free skate, and Shoma has pretty consistently good stamina.
I do wonder if maybe the free program is on the emptier side with a lot of the action in the last few minutes so that Shoma can develop the stamina for the 4-minute programs because everyone is being wiped out by them. And if he can get that stamina up, then maybe more complexity can come in later. I know he's working really hard on improving his jumps, and I do hope that he continues with this improvement because you can start to see the work is paying off. But I almost don't care about his rubbish takeoff. I would prefer that he still has an ugly takeoff to his toe jumps, but is doing them and landing them out of steps because I want to see more complex programs for him. He's never going to have clean, perfect technique. It's just not going to happen. They're just working to tidy up as much as they can. And I would rather see his kind of rubbish jumps in a complex program because his strengths are the steps and the musicality, and I would rather see them playing on those strengths more.
So in second place in the men, we had Keegan Messing, who represented Canada, and of course got a very warm welcome from the home crowd. So it was nice to see how much they were supporting him. As for his programs, like,
He performs them well.
Guys, we are all going to get banned from Canada.
Okay, no. I supported Nam, so I feel like I have that going for me.
It's like both of his programs just feel like very generic and very campy because he's skating to Chaplin, so of course it's going to be a character sketch. And it's like, especially in the free skate, you get the sense that he's channeling like the ghost of Javier Fernandez or something, which is like, he's not even dead yet, guys. Like, don't do him like this.
Yeah, Keegan gives me strong off-brand Javier vibes.
Exactly.
But he doesn't quite have the charisma that Javi has. Like, it played well in Canada, obviously, but I don't know if this would work as nicely if you were like competing elsewhere, I guess.
Oh, I'm very curious to see what his scores will look like at other locations.
Yeah, because our crowd obviously got really, really into his programs, but
I don't understand Canadians. His short program is a lot. I will say that I was correct last time, and his short program is much more enjoyable when I mute the music.
This just in, Gina doesn't like oldies.
I'm sorry. I still don't think it's a particularly good program. The choreography is pretty forgettable. He doesn't really deliver much of a character in it. His own personality is there, but it's just a generic Keegan program. And I'm not buying what he's selling, so.
Yeah, I think this is just like a style. This is just a subjective style. Like, it's not like we hate on him. I think that his skating skills are really great. I'll give him that. But, like, you know, there's only so far that good skating skills can take you. Like, I just kind of zoned out a little bit during them.
Yeah, it's not like he's bad because he's got the skills. He's got very nice jumps. His triple axel is huge. Like, he has very nice jumps. He's got good skills.
Yeah, I mean, I say that, but I disagree with some comments I've seen that his component score was ridiculously inflated. I disagree. I don't dig his style, but what he does it well. And I thought his component scores were fine.
I think relative to the rest of the field, I don't think that the gap between him and June especially should have been nearly 7 points.
Oh, no.
God, no.
Like, I'm trying to figure out where those missing 7 points are, because June also put out a clean program, and it's, yeah, I don't see where the difference is. But again, like, you know, what he does well, he does extremely well. His jumps are very good. Triple axel, just huge, like height, speed, distance, just flawless, like textbook triple axel. He's like saying about how he wants to maybe try a quad axel in the future. And I'm like, seeing his triple axel live, I'm like, yeah, he could land a quad axel. Like, he could definitely do it. If there's anyone who could do it, like maybe 2 men in the world could do it. I think he's one of them.
If there's anything that I hate, it's the fact that I live in a world where the sentence, yeah, he could land a quad axel, is a perfectly viable sentence.
Okay, so moving on to the bronze medalists in the men's event, we had Junhwan Cha from Korea. And first of all, big congratulations to him. He is the first Korean skater since Yana Kim to medal at a Grand Prix event. And he's the first Korean man ever to win a medal on the Grand Prix circuit. So, yeah, he made history this weekend and looked like he had a good time doing it. In terms of his program progress, they really haven't changed much since the last time we saw them. I think both of his programs, the Cinderella and the Romeo and Juliet, they feel like kind of growing pain programs, because now that he's been to the Olympics and he's started to make a splash on the world stage, his team is like sending out kind of feelers to see like what his style is, because he doesn't really have like a brand yet. He doesn't have a style that, you know, you associate with him, but he doesn't project very well to the audience, or at least he hasn't learned how to yet. And so I'm not really sure if super, super dramatic music is the best choice for him in terms of developing his expression moving forward.
I don't know. I always feel like sometimes the more dramatic music is a little bit better in helping skaters develop expression, just because the drama kind of influences your movements as well. So like if you have the drama built in, you can kind of like put your skating on top of that and the expression kind of builds. It definitely does scream junior-ish though. Like that's one of my criticisms sometimes of like the junior skaters, is sometimes they rely a little bit too much on the music. And that's where, you know, and you don't want to just rely on the music to pull your programs through.
I did think that he had some improvements. I felt that in the free skate, my criticism before had been that in the disco sections, his movements weren't very snappy and didn't feel like he was channeling the party mode enough. And I did feel that he was quite a bit crisper and more party in this competition.
Yeah, I do think that he does need to work on his performance and interpretation side of things. But in his short program specifically, I had a problem with his component scores. Mostly in his skating skills, he got mostly 7.75s and 7.25s. And I'm like, but why though? He did.
Yeah.
Vincent Zhou got higher skating skills in the short program than Junhwan, and that is not right. Junhwan in this short program, I think he utilized edges more than Vincent. He displayed more variety in steps. He had more speed. He had better flow throughout the program. There was quite a bit where he stood out as being better than Vincent at Skate America last week.
Especially the upper body. Like, Vincent's upper body is so stiff. And, like, June definitely has a lot more range of motion, I think.
So they did both come up from juniors around the same time, and they are kind of in that same tier in the field of young upcoming skaters. Vincent does kind of have a technical edge because he does go for it and try more quads, even if he doesn't rotate them. Junhwan should be getting more than him in components and should have that edge over him.
So one of the skaters that we also wanted to talk about from the men's discipline was Kazuki Tomino. because he had a really beautiful short program. He looks very mature, very refined.
I just gotta say that I love that costume. Like,
It's beautiful.
it's gorgeous. I'm a sucker for like the blue white ombre costumes. So
And also his free. It wasn't his best day for the free program. You could tell that he was very tense throughout the entire time and very tentative. And I'm pretty sure that that's where his jump errors came from, where his falls. But even by the time he got to the step sequence, it wasn't as good as it has been in the past. But you can tell that it has a lot of potential.
He does need to work. He really needs to look at those step sequences because he dropped a lot of levels on them. In the free skate, I hope he can fix that step sequence 2, level 2 situation without taking out the best part, which is obviously the Irish dancing in the middle.
Right.
That free program has so much potential. If he gets it together for Nationals and Worlds, I think it's going to be a real shining moment in the season. So much fun to watch. And he does have the showmanship to pull it off.
Oh, he's very charismatic.
Yeah, he's such a tiny skater, but he like projects so well that his presence just fills the rink, and he grabs the crowd. He did grab the crowd during the catchy bit, during the step sequence, and where the music gets really catchy, and he can focus on just like emoting, and he does step sequences extremely well, in my opinion. But unfortunately, I think the pressure of just being, relatively unknown from last season to suddenly being seeded for the Grand Prix and, having 2 assignments and kind of being expected to carry on, this grand tradition of Japanese men that we currently have can be a little bit overwhelming, I think, when you're suddenly a contender. And I hope that he can get both these programs just polished up a little bit more in preparation for Japanese nationals, and hopefully in getting sent to, a couple of the championships in the spring, because I want to see this program again.
And I want to see his programs get the PCS that they deserve.
Oh yeah, he's another one that I'm like, his components should be at least like a quarter of a mark to half a mark higher across every component.
yeah, and then poor Jason. I feel like we should probably mention him real fast. I really love his short program. It's a little, I don't know, it feels like a little bit more mature. It's less campy than some of his previous programs, and I really like that. I dig the new hairstyle. It goes along really well with his programs as well. He probably just was feeling a little bit nervous and a lot of pressure to perform well, especially since he's made this huge coaching change. I don't know. I'm not too worried. It's definitely disappointing, a disappointing and tough result for him, but it's, a new season, new coach, lots of changes. I'm not totally worried. I think it's just growing pains.
Unfortunately, he is not going to make the Grand Prix final this year. Because he finished in 6th here. So, which I think actually is going to be a good thing for him, because he's pretty clearly not ready. He's still adjusting to his new coaching environment, and he's having his jump technique overhauled like while he's competing. So I'm hoping it's going to work out for him, like in his favor though, in preparing for U.S. nationals and having basically from his second event until the end of January to just get in shape for nationals and hopefully make it to one or more of the championship events in the spring.
So I guess we're moving on to ice dance. Yeah, I guess we really learned that Canada loves ice dance. I wonder why. It was
I can't think of any reason.
It was by far the most highly attended discipline, I think.
Oh
It
yeah, they
definitely
clearly
had
sold the most single event tickets.
The most enthusiastic crowds for sure. Most of the front row seats were pretty filled for ice dance, considering they were both like early evening events as well. Like they started at around 6 or 7, and so it's not super late either. So a lot more people were able to attend their, it's like off work hours. I guess Canadians come watch ice dance when that happens.
It's a shame because it's kind of unlikely that a Canadian ice dance team is going to make it to the Grand Prix final.
And the 2 main Canadian ice dance teams, had some unexpected errors. Definitely really unexpected.
So the thing is, the ice dance discipline at this event was just kind of frustrating. Throughout, there were a lot of teams that had some rather subpar basic skating skills and edge work, and they were getting points when they really shouldn't have been getting points for them. Skating skills are kind of, or should be, or used to be, one of the major defining hallmarks of the really top-tier ice dance teams to really separate them from the rest of the pack. But it seems that now people are getting rewarded when they're not quite up to that par.
Especially, like, so we all knew that, like, scores were going to be, it's going to take some time to adjust properly to the new scoring system and, like, the range of scores in all the disciplines. Ice dance in particular, there has been, like, a pretty significant, like, 4 to 5 point increase on average, I guess, from previous seasons. Like, a 120 in the free dance is like Virtue Moyer, like Pyeongchang, like you gave your heart on, you put your heart on the ice, and you know that's like the best that you can do kind of free dance. But now, like, we saw 3 120 scores in the free dance at Skate Canada, which is, again, we expected the increase, but I don't know if 120 still is like was like a reasonable score for some of these events, especially here at like Skate Canada in the second Grand Prix. So I don't know how the judging is going to be like for the rest of the season if some of these teams are getting 120s already. And, you know, we haven't even seen some of the other top teams yet compete. So
the top team that was here for sure, the name that a lot of people were expecting, was the gold medalists, Madison Hubble and Zachary Donahue. Hubble, Donahue were definitely the favorites going into this, and they did very well.
Yeah, and they basically just booked their ticket to the Grand Prix final since they got 2 first-place finishes. Hubble and Donahue are definitely the best, or the team with the best skating skills at this event. Their edge quality and their speed is better than most of the other Gadbois teams. I don't know if it's necessarily like top level, like I said, like 120s level. Like they got, I think, although this week they got lower scores than they did at Skate America. I think they got 122 last week and they got 120 this time, and they didn't win the free dance. And they also, Maddie changed her rhythm dance dress so that they could prevent the costume violation that they got last week on their rhythm dance.
I felt that their free dance, we've discussed this before on the podcast, but it feels very much like there's like a weird disconnect between their performativity and the drama and performativity that the really aggressive music is calling for.
To be fair, I do like Hubble and Donahue quite a bit, but I feel that their program, especially their free dance, the Romeo and Juliet, I think a lot of people have voiced their criticisms on it already. But like, to me, it just feels like Romeo and Juliet for them, it's like they're such a mature team. They've been together for they've been competing together for quite a while now. And Romeo and Juliet just feels a lot like a program that you'd probably give to like a junior team or a junior skater to help them with their expression, because like I said, it's got the drama and the emotion built into it. Like, it's not really like they are dramatic enough for the Romeo and Juliet music, and I don't know, it just felt a little bit too lighthearted, and it doesn't like build up enough, I guess, to the ending.
Yeah, I was confused at the ending. I was like, wait, she's dead now? How did that happen?
Yeah.
So let's move on to the second dance team here. So it was Victoria Sinitsina and Nikita Katsalapov from Russia, kind of making a return to competition for them. Well, they won their first event this season by a pretty big margin. They're a technically pretty strong team. Like, Victoria is she's beautiful. She's a beautiful performer. She has beautiful skating skills, and she just kind of floats across the ice. And, you know, Nikita's just kind of there.
Just dragging her around.
Yeah, like, he doesn't really contribute to the performance that much. Like, he's basically there to show her off. But even then, I feel like they don't really have enough chemistry for that to actually work if the man is kind of like a little bit in the background of the program.
I'm just not used to seeing them together still. I'm still getting used to that. So
yeah, they're a pretty new-ish team. They got together after the Sochi Olympics, but they haven't been competing consistently since then. And so, yeah, we haven't really seen them around in a while. And I think in the free dance, it looked like he actually dropped her during a lift. It was like near the beginning where he like kind of had her on his knee, I think. And then it seemed like he slipped or something. And I couldn't tell if it was like choreographed or not, which doesn't say a lot for the choreo if you can't tell like what's a mistake and what was intentional.
Which is why I'm so curious why they added all of those choreographic knee slides to, like, it's a requirement now for all the dance teams to do choreographic knee slides, and
Everyone's
they lead to so many mishaps and errors.
And in this season too, where like every other skater is like, oh cool, let me touch the ice with my knees. It's like,
what's going on? Everyone's got a knee slide. Everyone needs to stop. Kevin Amos is the only one who's allowed to do knee slides now.
Yes.
Everyone needs to get that memo and just stop.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like I wasn't really connecting to their program as much as like the other teams, but it does seem like they're on the rise, and they're probably going to be one of Russia's top dance teams along with Stepanova and Bukin. And, you know, with the scores being as they are, like they beat Hubble and Donahue in the free, which was, I guess, pretty unexpected. Like definitely unexpected for me. You know, we could see them also rising to the top ranks as well.
The free dance was boring.
I zoned out.
the free dance seemed like it was supposed to be like clean and glassy and very elegant, but they didn't really have the tech to back it up.
No, they do. They have good tech. Like their tech is fine. It was just boring. Like it didn't connect to the audience.
I feel like this will make no sense, but it felt like the program wanted to be very, very lyrical. Not lyrical, but like balletic almost, like the vibe. But they felt
very
almost
Russian.
But they felt very crunchy. Like their tech. I mean, like it felt crunchy. It didn't mesh well with the vibe they were trying to give off.
And then our third place team was Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier from Canada. Definitely another crowd favorite. Probably the biggest crowd favorite that I saw of the entire event. It was such a shame that fluke fall during their pattern in the rhythm dance. Like that was completely unexpected and so tough to watch because the crowd was so into them. And it just looked like her toe pick caught on the ice and she tripped. But they have really great skating skills and gorgeous lines. So, man, what a shame.
Yeah, that mistake was really unfortunate. And they were saying in the Kiss and Cry later, like, we need bigger rinks because it wasn't an Olympic-sized rink.
Yeah, it was an NHL-sized rink so that everyone was closer to the boards.
They weren't the only ones to have a problem with that because I think I remember it was maybe in the men's. Someone went into like a flying entry for a spin and I saw members of the crowd recoil to not get hit. Like, that's not good.
Yeah, I noticed just like in general, a lot of the jumps were super close to the boards. Lisa, like she during practice almost like ran into us.
She did run into the boards.
Like, yeah, that's what I meant. Like she basically ran into the boards after landing her triple Lutz triple toe. Definitely an interesting choice to not hold the event in an Olympic-sized rink. But yeah, like I think that the rhythm dance is great. Like she is so beautiful. Like I can't even explain. Like in person, Piper is so beautiful. But like, oh man, I just was so sad for them because they had such a good chance of making Grand Prix final if they held on to the silver medal. But it's looking unlikely, I think, that they'll make it. They'd have to win their next event.
Paul needs to keep his mustache shaved.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, he like shaved it he kept it out for the rhythm dance and shaved it for the free dance. I didn't even recognize him when he came out for free dance practice. I was like, oh my God, that's Paul. He like looks 15 years younger than he did 24 hours ago just because he shaved his mustache.
No. Please do not do that. Paul, if you're listening, please just get rid of the mustache wholesale. Like
Paul, more flower crowns, fewer mustaches.
Yes. But yeah, it was great that they made a great comeback in the free dance.
Wong Lu. What happened to them this competition? And I mean, what happened to them? Because I'm not sure they did anything.
Yeah, it was. We've had a lot of discussions about what happened with Wong Lu. We were like the Wong Lu hype squad, by the way, at Skate Canada. So if you
didn't hear if you heard screaming in the crowd, that was us.
That was definitely all us.
She like definitely looked at us and giggled because we were screaming so loudly,
especially during practice. Like practices are pretty empty, and then there's just like this one row of like girls just screaming at them. But yeah, so Wong Lu, I loved their programs, both of them. But they were hit pretty hard on the levels and deductions. They got an interruption call in the second part of their pattern. And I was so confused about this. And I like had to ask friends what was like happening there. But so basically the rule book says that like an interruption of less than 4 beats gives you like a loss of level in the pattern. So Wong Lu got a level 2 on the second part of the Tango Romantica, but due to the interruption, they ended up with like a level 1 and then lost half a point because it lowers the base value. And watching back the video, it just looked like Xin Yu, he kind of messed up the timing on some of his steps. So for the Tango Romantica pattern, you need to, the holds and the steps have to be on like beats. And if they're off, then you can get like an interruption or a timing call. And it seems like he should have gotten a timing call because he didn't hold a step long enough and kind of messed up some of the timing. So that's why I feel like the judges probably made a mistake, because Piper and Paul got the same call on their Tango Romantica section 2 because of the fall. And I was just thinking that maybe the judges were thinking of Piper and Paul and put the same violation on their protocol, but then didn't bother changing it to like a timing call because the timing call also leads to a loss of level. So yeah, I don't know.
It does make me wish that there was maybe a system for skaters to contest those kind of calls. But like, if they were going to get a call that did exactly the same thing anyway, does it really matter?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was probably the justification. They probably just didn't notice. But yeah. And then they had an extended lift in the free dance. The lifts have to be, I think this is such a stupid rule, by the way. The limit is 7 seconds, and I think their straight line lift, which I really love that lift. It was 8 seconds, so they got a 1 point deduction. And I just hate this rule because I feel like it's just them trying to differentiate between pairs and ice dance more. But like, come on, really? Really?
The difference is that in ice dance, they don't get thrown.
And it's like she's not doing a split above his head on like a hand, like a pizza platter. It's very clearly not the same thing.
The lifts are so much different. They're so different already between like ice dance and pairs. Like anyone that doesn't recognize the difference obviously just doesn't watch figure skating that much, and you don't need to change the rules for them.
I mean, I just think generally they have really great charisma and they have great projection, and they've very recently broken into the elite ranks. So it's pretty impressive to see them like have this connection with each other already. And it's like, yeah, their short program's a little campy. Like it's kind of divisive in terms of opinion.
I love the Pirates of the Caribbean.
But it's so unique.
It's not a tango.
Yeah, it's like just after hearing tango after tango after you've heard like 10 tangos in a row, they all start to sound the same. I'm not exaggerating at all. They do sound the same.
I mean, I'm very happy to not hear like the same generic accordion, violin, da 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 da. But like, what is Pirates doing here? But
I do like their rhythm dance. It's very unique. It's very like, it's fresh and like they have fun, and you can tell that they have fun skating to it. But I think the one thing, like, because I watched them pretty extensively in practice, the one thing that concerned me was how he kept running into other skaters during practice. Like I saw it happen 4 times, or not running into them, but having really close calls with them. And it happened just 4 times while I was watching. And I don't know if it's like he lacks just kind of awareness of his like place on because he's so tall that like
he just doesn't look down.
Hard for him to tell like in relation to other people like where he is, or like in relation to the ice. But like I worry about this like affecting them as a couple, like skating, like losing connection or like breaking out of sync or something.
Yeah, he definitely does look like his height is very apparent. Like, I'm surprised that his posture is still relatively decent considering how much taller he is. But
he's so tall. He was so tall that it's hard to get them in one shot. So I give it like a beautiful picture of her, and then half of his head is just like gone at the top.
But yeah, love them. Wish that they didn't get underscored, but what can you do? All right, so I guess the next is the ladies' event. In first place, we had Elizaveta Tuktamisheva from Russia.
Her triple axel is actually amazing.
It is.
Like, she goes into it with basically no speed.
And it was perfectly, I saw that it was like cleanly rotated, like live in real time.
Yeah. Like, you can see how powerful she is because of how just like almost calmly she goes into it. Like, she doesn't need to like do a lap around the rink to like set up for it. It's like within the first, I think, like 10 to 15 seconds of her program, like she has landed the triple axel. And she landed multiple clean ones in practice, or like she had a little turnout, but she was like on her feet. I think, unfortunately, in the free skate, she did tighten up a little bit going into it, and she had even less speed than she usually has going into it, and she just didn't get enough height to get the rotations all the way around. And so, yeah, she took a fall on that, and it wasn't called under-rotated, but it was very clearly under-rotated, even in real time. Like, watching from the rink, you could tell that she was actually pretty close to, like, the 1/2 rotation mark coming down. So I don't know why it wasn't called for her. Like, maybe, I don't know, the angle just wasn't good or something. But, yeah, it definitely should have been called.
The one thing is, I feel that sometimes I don't know if it was her today, or I don't know if it was her this weekend or her style, but she's definitely a bit more slow and halting at times.
Oh, for sure. That's probably my main gripe with her skating.
That makes it difficult for me to get into some of her skating.
She doesn't get a lot of ice coverage, which probably, so she got 31 PCS in the short program, which did seem a bit low. Max for ladies is 40. And she had a clean skate, so I think a big part of it is definitely attributable to her. Just kind of, she's like noticeably slower going across the ice than, like, you know, Evgenia or, you know, some of the younger skaters. So
I'm definitely more partial to, like, the free skate, just because I really love that last, like, 30 seconds when the music really picks up and she does that, like, cantilever fist bumping move. But, like, some of her programs, like, especially the beginning of the free skate, like, drags a little bit towards the beginning. It's kind of, like, that kind of smooth, sultry, but, like, it kind of, like, drags. So I'm not as, like, into it. Although generally I do like the program. I just wish she moved a little bit faster, put a little bit more, like, I don't know, more finesse into her motions as well.
Yeah, I wish there was more harmony between her upper body and lower body, because in the short program, sometimes they look kind of disconnected, and in the free skate, her upper body was kind of there. It just existed. And I think that probably hurts her components too.
I mean, she didn't get a huge score here, actually. I thought they were quite reasonable with her scores for the ladies champion at a Grand Prix. But, I mean, she is such a powerful skater that I think she can't get enough speed to really be, like, really show-stopping. So I hope that's something that they look into moving forward for her, especially since she always seems to peak in, like, post-Olympic seasons, which, like, as a fan of her is the most frustrating thing.
Yeah. Good on her for continuing, though. Like, a lot of skaters kind of just, like, give up if they don't make the Olympics. Or
twice. She didn't make the Olympics twice.
Right. Yeah. If they don't make the Olympics twice, and, you know, she's still out here putting out great programs and performing so well.
And the rest of her jumps are just beautiful too. Like,
oh
best
my
triple
goodness,
lutz in the ladies field, hands down.
Her triple lutz, triple toe. It looks like she just lightly like taps into the ice and she just flies across the rink. It's massive. It's incredible. Like, there's no muscling. It's just like a gentle tap and she just goes.
She's technically excellent. Just need to get a little bit faster, and then I think she'll be one to watch for the major championships. So in second place, we had Mako Yamashita from Japan. Talk about a dark horse medalist. In her first senior season.
Thank you for saving my fantasy team.
Yeah, like, rest in peace, my fantasy team.
She saved mine.
I'm so happy that it was sacrificed for her.
Yeah, we all bet on the Russians.
Yeah, like, always bet on the Russians. No, that's a lie.
Yeah.
But no, she actually lost the gold by 0.26 of a point.
Incredible.
Because she got negative grade of execution on her triple loop in the free skate. And she got an edge call on the flip, but that wasn't really the contributing factor. It was the negative GOE. But
would she have gotten gold if Lisa's under rotation had been called?
Probably,
yeah.
But yeah, just I don't think anybody, like, even people who picked her for their team or whatever, I don't think anybody saw her actually being on the podium. So, I mean, just amazing skate. I think she was the only lady skater here to have 2 clean programs, which, again, is just a testament to how well she's trained. And she is one of the few non-Russian skaters who has 2 triples in the free skate. So, again.
Yeah.
Like, she's coming out, like, ready to claim a spot in the Japanese, like, ladies field.
The already completely inundated one. Like, how many Japanese ladies we got here?
We have 3. There's 3 at every Grand Prix.
I just mean in terms of, like, just Japanese ladies in general. The field is is so
It's packed.
already.
It's like she took one look at the crazy deep Japanese ladies field and she just floated in with this like ethereal, beautiful style and was like, I'm here.
Well, to me, her program still felt pretty juniorish to me, which is fine because this is our first senior season. But this is definitely not something that I think should become a consistent brand for her moving forward, because the drawback of having so many Japanese ladies and having such a deep field is that she needs to distinguish herself stylistically from the rest of them to really realistically be a contender to be sent to championships.
Yeah, I don't know about the choice of doing Madame Butterfly for her free skate, especially the year after Satoko, like the top Japanese lady, gave such an iconic Madame Butterfly program. It's definitely, obviously not Satoko's program, but it's not going to help distinguish her at all.
Exactly. And she trains with Mihoko Higuchi, who also coaches Shoma. And I think Mihoko maybe just has a thing for like operatic programs at this point.
Italian
and
operas.
she's just like, she just has like a binder full of operas and she just like flips through them and just like assigns them to her skaters. But I mean, yeah, it's honestly fine, I think, for her first senior season to be skating to something that, I mean, I'm sure she likes the music. She looked like she was having fun skating to it.
For me, like her jump technique looked like incredible. Like I was not really that familiar with her before Skate Canada, and like I remember watching her during practices, and like her jumps look so massive, proportionate to like her body size. Like she's not large at all, but like she basically looks the same size as Satoko, and yet she just launches herself into the air so easily. Like her picking technique is so great.
Yeah, she has. I mean, I found her jumps to be a little bit on the small side, but because she's very small. So,
right,
like, proportional
yeah.
to her size.
That's why I was so surprised that her jumps weren't like Satoko's.
But she gets the rotations around with plenty of room. She has just this gorgeous running edge coming out of it. I'm like, you're 15. Like, where did you come from? Like, can you stay around a while? But yeah, just generally, I think no one really saw this coming. So we're just kind of like, oh, cool. Like, she did amazing. Hopefully, she continues this and she can have a strong showing at her next assignment.
Yeah, so then in third place, we had Evgenia Medvedeva, which I think was definitely one of the more dramatic arcs over the course of the weekend. Her short program, I think she must have just fallen victim to some nerves on her first GP.
I feel like it was a better performance than the Autumn Classic, especially in terms of her feeling the music and executing the choreography. Obviously, she had problems with her flip and invalidated the
combo.
Yeah, she really had the Hanyu experience at Skate Canada.
Right.
It's the TCC brand.
You got to invalidate something at Skate Canada
to have a good season. It seemed like she panicked a little bit, I think, going into the flip, because they're clearly retooling her technique, and so they're trying to get her to not do as much of like a blade takeoff on the flip. But then she kind of like reverted to old habits a little bit when you're under competitive pressure like that, and so you want to like you fall back onto like the technique that's gotten you through like your career so far. So she did like this like weird like half blade assist, and there was just no way she was gonna get that jump around. Like she just wasn't gonna get the high for it.
It definitely was like a mental thing, I think, with Gina, because she basically looked flawless in practice. I don't think I even saw her step out of anything.
I didn't see her miss a single jump in practice.
Yeah, for 3 days, I don't think I saw her miss anything in practice.
Her competitive spirit, her competitive energy, it was clearly, it faltered in the short, but in practices and then in the free, you can just see that she was like on.
Yeah, she practices like she competes, which is very impressive.
Yeah, like I was so impressed watching her practice, especially like even when her music isn't playing, like she's practicing her step sequence and her choreo sequences like as if it were. Like her movements are so sharp. She's so in the zone. She's not half-assing anything. It's just so impressive to watch her focus, I guess.
Although there was a great bit in one of the practices where it was for the free skate. So she was in the first group of practices, and we think it may have been because they had forgotten that she was in the first group this time, but she like went into the middle of the rink for her run through.
The pleading hand.
And nothing happened. Just nothing happened. She was standing there with like her hand up, like waving to him.
No, like they literally were like, so at the end of practice, they announced like there are 6 minutes left in this practice session. when like all of the skaters go through their run-throughs and they have like a little bit of time to practice whatever for a couple more minutes. Like they said that, and like Gina was just like standing in the middle of the rink and like was like, what's going on? And then was like giving pleading hands to like the announcers and the music people.
Yeah, that was funny. But she did come back very strong in the free skate. Like again, sometimes you just get the sense like watching a skater come out, you're like, oh, they're gonna hit today. And she definitely she won the segment.
Yeah, she definitely did seem tentative, though, I will say, going especially into her first couple of jumps. Like, her landings weren't quite solid, like, but she gritted them out. Like, she was like, I'm going to land this, like, no matter what happens. Like, I have to land them. But she definitely loosened up a little bit more after a couple of jumps went okay.
I think the free skate music is a really good choice for her because that really focused, slightly pissed off kind of expression she had going into the free skate really fit the music. It was kind of, femme fatale-ish. She's gotten a lot better at getting the tone of the music and moving in a way that complements it and getting the expression on her face in a way that's organic and not over the top miming, which is great. She's really not getting that bonus, that Atari Girl bonus anymore.
Which is like, can we now like say that is a thing now? Because this is
Definitely.
Like such a unique circumstance, right? Where like we get like one of Atari's top students competing and like not getting the super duper high scores. Like, even though a performance like this, she's probably given worse performances than this and gotten far better scores.
Yeah, and the judges are really just not giving her any freebies anymore. I suppose it's a good thing because now she knows what her real score is, and she can work up and really earn the points that she used to get so easily. But it's going to really suck for her, especially when she doesn't end up going up against Elena.
And so another standout performance, I guess, or standout, not necessarily in the positive way, was Wakaba Higuchi. Man, I love that short program, that Energia short program. I do feel like she probably could have put a little bit more energy into it, but I just think the choreo is so great, and like the energy of the song is fantastic for the crowd.
Considering that she's like injured and apparently very close to a stress fracture, she did very well in the short program.
Yeah, she finished second in the short.
She was landing all of her jumps in practice for the most part. Again, like short program, fantastic, beautiful. It's perfect for her. Like the music was written for her. But I do think that she's not very fast across the ice. She doesn't get a lot of ice coverage. I don't think that's actually related to her injury because she was pretty slow at Worlds too.
Her steps
like
tend
despite
to be slow,
yeah. So I think she kind of needs to break out of the pack a little bit there because obviously it's not good to have a reputation of kind of being a lethargic skater, which like it's just such a strange contrast with how expressive and how well she emotes the fact that she's not really getting a lot of speed as she moves across the ice.
I feel like this is something that her team could be retooling, giving her programs that help disguise the fact that she has the speed issue while she works on it. Similarly, I feel like, like the triple flip that they insist on having for her, or the fact that they keep giving her these very awkward spirals.
Yeah, with the flip, I just kind of wish that they would take it out the short program and just leave it for the free skate, and just swap it out with something else. I do know that she needs the flip to be competitive, but in the short, I just wish they'd swap it out for a loop or something. Just put something else there. Especially this season, because the tech committee has decided that they hate flips.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's actually wrong. They're just going to call it. They're like, oh, a flip, like, you guys know what to do.
And there are skaters with questionable flip technique, and like Wakaba has always kind of had an issue with it. So
kind of unfortunate in the free skate that she struggled a bit with her jumps. I mean, again with the injury, and then probably she was kind of nervous being
for sure,
second in the short program, and just didn't really look like she had the stamina to get through that program. And overall, like the free skate is still kind of generic. It'll look like cookie cutter-ish to me.
I feel like the nerves are also kind of due to like the fact that she's like now a world medalist, right? She's a reigning world silver medalist. So it, that does put a little bit of a spotlight on you. And especially since she also still has to keep trying to stand out amongst the other Japanese ladies.
I think she does stand out quite well. I think her style is very unique. Like it's very her. And so like, I mean, I think, stylistically, I don't think she has an issue with kind of, holding her own against the rest of the Japanese ladies. But I think technically she's gonna have some issues moving forward after seeing what like Satoko and Kaori did at Skate America last week.
The short program, I think, stylistically suits her so well. I think works great. Like, but the free skate, I'm struggling with this choice still.
4 Seasons is just, it's suited to someone who's just so much more soft and lyrical.
Yeah, she's more of a powerful skater.
Yeah, she's so powerful. Her jumps are huge. Like, her triple Lutz, triple toe combination just, like, flies out of the rink.
Yeah, I'm just, like, really sad for her because, like, I really wanted her to make the Grand Prix final.
But I think it might be good because she does seem to be struggling a lot this season. I think it'll be good for her to go home and just be with her team and, like, heal and train.
And they deserve to milk the applause. It was fantastic.
So now it's time for our shout out of the week. It's just something that we loved from this competition that we wanted to give a little commendation to.
Yeah, shout out first to Miriam and Neil for giving Zhenya the flower crowns and the kiss and cry. Yeah, that was like such a sweet moment, and I'm glad that like she enjoyed it. I think they tried to give one to Brian as well, but I think he
was like no.
He was like no.
He's like, I'm not wearing that.
I'm not wearing that. So
well, Zhenya should have asked him to wear it.
Yeah, Zhenya should have. Yeah. And also for Paul Poirier for tweeting about the flower crowns that I gave to him and Piper during the victory ceremony. That was like really cool of him. So,
and he was wearing it in Piper's Instagram story,
which is really cool as well. So yeah, shout out to you, and maybe we'll just keep doing this from now on. I guess
it's gonna be our brand.
We're gonna bring a ton of flower crowns to the Grand Prix final. So
I'll have to get one for Korean nationals.
Yes, do it.
Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again for our next episode, which will be about Grand Prix Helsinki.
If you want to get in touch with us, then please feel free to contact us via our website, inthelowpodcast.com, or on Twitter, Tumblr, or Facebook. You can find our episodes on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify.
If you enjoy the show and want to help support the team, then please consider making a donation to us on our Ko-fi page. And we'd like to give a huge thank you to all the listeners who have contributed to our team thus far.
So you can find the links to all of our social media pages and our Ko-fi on the website. If you're listening on iTunes, please consider leaving a rating and a review if you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. This has been Nina,
Kite,
Gina,
and Kat. Thank you for listening.
See ya.
Bye.